all mean, man. Attorney Rachel Kugel is here.
Also on hand to discuss what Maria Lauterbach's mental state was is psychiatrist Dr. Keith Abloh. But let's get to you, Rachel, first. So there are some revelations that have come out over the last days or so. Right. You know, she took out $700 before her disappearance, among some other things. But, you know, hearing all this stuff, it's kind of like, does it really matter? In the end?
Right. I mean, that's my opinion, too. I don't see all this stuff about her mental state and everything else. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to come in. I mean, that's the first question of any evidence, is whether it's relevant. And it's not relevant in this murder case. It might be relevant in the sex assault case, but those are two separate things.
Why
completely.
In the world, though, if this guy's communicating with his wife, Christina, why would it seems like the authorities should keep that secret? It's a line back to where he is. Why would the authorities let us all know he's writing letters?
You know, I'm not sure that they did actually let us know. I think that was something, yeah, I think that was something reporters found out. You know, when I heard that Brown talking in those press conferences, he didn't want to say
Sheriff
exactly
Ed Brown.
Right, exactly.
One of the letters postmarked in Houston, but they truly believe he's in Mexico.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. It appears that's where he's from, and they think that he might have gone back.
So the question is, there are many questions here, obviously, but one of the questions is, did he rape her? She said that he did. She intimated that he did. But then there was this ongoing relationship, it seems, like she just kept going back to him.
Right, but here's
how does that factor into the case?
But the thing is, if we've got a homicide case here, it is irrelevant whether he raped her or not to that homicide case, and it's irrelevant whether she was telling the truth or not. Doesn't matter.
Trumps all that other stuff.
If he thought she was going to testify against him, and that's the motive, whether what she was going to testify to was true or not is irrelevant.
But it's so interesting, even though it's not relevant to this particular case anymore, that she may have taken that $700 out, may have purchased a ticket down to El Paso, Texas. It seems as if she was ready, possibly, to run away with him.
Well,
weird.
It is weird, but it also shows that she would have no reason to kill herself, which is the other thing that's been thrown around.
Keith, what's the deal? I mean, we talked about this briefly a few days ago. If this woman was actually raped, as she claimed that she was, by this guy, why would she keep going back to him? Why would she have an ongoing relationship with him if she truly did?
Well, you know what? Victims sometimes become victims because there is a deep psychological reason why they put themselves in harm's way. Don't forget, predators can identify vulnerable people.
Explain that.
So, in other words, let's say that, and I don't know, I didn't evaluate her, obviously, but let's say that she had an experience in her early life where someone was inappropriate with her, hurt her badly, injured her, but was somebody who said he loved her, or that, you know, whether a parent or a relative or a teacher, and she's confused as to her feelings toward people who are abusive to her. She might replay that now.
To the point of, let's say that he did rape her, she could develop a relationship with that person.
This, you know, this makes people vulnerable to those very bizarre dynamics. And don't forget the other actor in the drama who's coaxing her back in. So maybe he says, you know what? I do love you. I'm so sorry that I got violent. I have this problem. You could help me with it. Let's run away together.
So do you
get a
think
ticket?
That he was trying to convince her not to testify against him? Oh, yes, I am. And then he...
Listen, it's very possible that you know, we don't know, but it's very possible that that was the plan, or that something in the interaction, you know, triggered him again to be violent, if he was, in fact, a rapist in the past with her. So I think that what you have here is two people dancing where she's lost potentially. This may have brought up deep feelings for her from the past. She's drawn into a flame, and he's the flame. And just like that, maybe he snapped, okay, and she ends up in the backyard. That can happen. We don't know if it did, but it can.
Rachel, the fact that he fled, that doesn't look good. If he is caught, and we hope that he is,
that's right,
and he is put on trial, the fact that he fled is not going to bode well for his defense.
No, I mean, that fact can actually come into evidence in a trial, and the evidence is consciousness of guilt. A jury will be instructed that they consider that, and we remember Scott Peterson, that made a big difference in this case.
And apparently some of his Marine friends have said that those words came out of his mouth. Listen, if I even am charged with this rape, I'm running off to my family and friends in Mexico. Okay, hang on here. Up next, another big story we've been following for 2 weeks. That deadly tiger attack at the San Francisco Zoo. Dramatic
911 tapes have been released, and you might have heard them. They raise a lot of questions about the zoo's response in the wake of the attack. Listen to this.
The
7-minute 911 call captures Cool Beer Dollywall screaming for help on his cell phone inside the San Francisco Zoo on Christmas Day. Cool Beer is convinced either he or his brother Paul will be the next fatality of the 300-pound Siberian tiger, which has already killed their friend, 17-year-old Carlos Sousa Jr., and is roaming perilously close to them. Coolbeer is also hurt, but is trying desperately to get help for his younger brother, Paul, who has been badly mauled by the tiger.
Okay, the ambulance is staging. I need you to understand that if the ambulance people, paramedics, okay, calm down. All right? I am going to stay on the line with you.
Coolbeer goes on to demand a helicopter as his patience runs low and his fears run high.
Can you fly a helicopter right here? Because I'm going to be ambulances.
Okay, stay calm. You have to stay calm for your brother. All right?
Man, do not take this car to get an ambulance out here.
But while the injured Dollywall brothers wait desperately for help, a separate 911 call placed by a zoo employee who was talking with colleagues on a two-way radio revealed zoo employees initially did not believe the young men's story about a big cat escaping. A woman is overheard saying,
I don't know if they're on drugs or what. They're screaming about an animal that has attacked them, but there's no animal out.
Another male tells the dispatcher,
they don't know, saying that he got attacked by a lion. But they're both very agitated. They might be off drugs.
A zoo spokesperson said the recordings reinforced the zoo director's position that the staff, quote unquote, acted heroically in guiding emergency responders.
Oh, my gosh. All right, here with the latest from San Francisco is San Francisco Chronicle reporter Audrey Cooper. Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, what is the deal with this zoo? First of all, this kind of bearing the lead here. Something else happened. Two other things happened at the zoo recently with the polar bear and then another animal. What was the deal with that?
That's right. The zookeepers are telling the Chronicle that there was a near escape of a polar bear right before a big storm in San Francisco when they were trying to herd it into its night enclosure. In a completely separate incident, a snow leopard tried to get out of a mesh cage that it was inside. It was inside a larger cage at the time, but there was a zookeeper in that larger cage.
Wow, and a zebra has died recently, which may have nothing to do with any of this, but
right.
Trouble at the San Francisco Zoo for sure. Hey, now, set me straight on this. Did all three of the young men have cell phones?
Well, we know at least the two Dollywall brothers did. The police yesterday searched those as well as the car that they took to the zoo. Now, the police have been pretty tight-lipped. They're trying to crack down on any leaks in the case, so we don't know what they've found yet, but they did manage to search those items.
Rachel Kugel is still with us, as is Dr. Keith Abloh. Rachel, when you hear those 911 tapes of the Dollywall brothers saying, please, somebody get us an ambulance, and then you hear the subsequent tapes of the zoo workers saying they might be on drugs, how would that, that does not look good for the zoo.
Oh, no, it definitely doesn't. And in light of this new information about a snow leopard almost getting out in a polar bear, I mean, what the heck is going on over there?
And a dead zebra.
Yeah, I mean, it's out of control.
But Doctor,
just to add insult to injury.
Why wouldn't the employees, though, these guys are bleeding, why aren't they believed? Well, you know, on one of the calls in the background, you hear a zoo employee goes, oh, that's impossible. The tigers can't get out. Or I think they said lions can't get out of their enclosures. Well, they did. One did.
Well, first of all, you know, the mind has its own defenses, and one of them is denial. So the first pass that some people take at really bad scenarios is it can't be happening. Right? It's a way that the mind insulates itself, but even more so in a zoo, because the whole thing is like a state of suspended animation.
Well, it's a fun place.
This is like where animals are behind glass. How can this be where there's one hunting us? So the fact that a zoo is a particular kind of structure where people go to observe in safety and walk through and have ice cream, how can that become a place where it's like a safari?
But doesn't it come down to, no matter what they found in the cell phones or in these guys' cars, no matter what they were throwing, pine cones, rocks, whatever, the enclosure has to be high enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, what these tapes bring out is that there was no plan in place by the zoo to deal with such an issue. And while it is, as Dr. Keith says, sort of an, you know, a surreal experience, by the same token, though, it's not unforeseeable when you're dealing with dangerous wild animals that something could happen. There was no plan in place, and that's going to be a big problem for them in any kind of lawsuit.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
We're going to keep you up to date on that. Audrey, thank you very much for San Francisco. All right, let's move on to a lighter note today. Significantly the lighter note. There are lots of ways to find love, people.